Hi everyone, I'm trying to make this a weekly session. Please let me know in the comments to see whether this helps. I'll focus on the top 5 crypto in terms of market cap first. If there's enough people that like this session, I'll expand further. So let's start with XRP first. Let me pull up the drawing. In case you're new to this, the long-term playground zone I've explained or brought up in the previous video. This time we're looking at XRP, and you probably see it right away that it's basically between 20 cents to roughly 65 cents since 2017. And let's get closer to the timeline to where we are. So basically, it didn't have a very high peak this cycle. It stopped at somewhere around 75 cents, max around 93 cents, and then it comes back down with the automatic reaction. So there are a couple of second tests and then sign of weakness in terms of Wyckoff terminology. Now it's still within the trading range. You see this purple line where the bottom, it's kind of trying to hold its ground, and the top here is where the long-term playground zone top is. So if we look at the volume, it's kind of declining in terms of the green bars, and actually this week we start to see somewhat red bar. Yesterday was still green, so things are still evolving. It doesn't seem to have a clear direction. But if this is really a distribution cycle, we'll probably see a drop somewhere. So there's one thing I want you to keep in mind for the time being. I'll explain further after I go through the other 4 cryptocurrencies. So right here, the week of August 5th, we see a very high volume bar over here, but then the price didn't go up that much. So this is something I want you to keep in mind first. So we have a long tail and a long wick for this candlestick, but that may imply something that I have in mind. I'll explain further when I got to all the way to Bitcoin. So this is where we are in terms of XRP, and so to sum up, it's still within the trading range here between 48 or 49 cents to somewhere around 65 cents. And then in terms of volume, it's kind of shrinking. There's not much indication for the time being. And in terms of the chart itself, it's still within distribution cycle as far as I see it. So the orange ones are the accumulation. The blue ones are the distribution cycles events. So let's see how this evolves, whether it will come down or like after this trading range, the big players would like to push it up. So let's move to Solana. We can see an obvious difference now. Solana has a much higher peak so far this year. So compared to last time, it's around $60 difference, 50-ish, depending on whether we look at the wick or the top of the close. If we just look at this distribution cycle, we see a couple of signs of weakness already, and there's a little bit of last point of supply in terms of the tests that in Wyckoff method mentioned. And then remember in XRP I mentioned August 5th, right? So here, if we look at this bar again, it's something similar, very long wick and tail. And then the price didn't close too far from where it started. Again, keep this in mind, this is the second one we're seeing now. And let's go back to the Wyckoff analogy for the time being. This yellow line and then this orange line basically governs the trading range that I've marked on the chart. And so far, it's still within the trading range. So similar to XRP, it may stay within this trading range for a while. So don't get overly excited, because if we look at the volume bars, it's telling kind of similar story. It's kind of trending downwards, so there's not much buying power coming in. that Solana, if we look at the daily chart, is actually showing signs of like a bit of buying and selling intertwined. So even if you are bullish, try to manage your risk well, because if I look at the Wyckoff method, it's kind of waiting for something like this, a drop somewhere down the timeline. So that's for Solana. And now let's take a look at BNB. Binance Coin, it's a bit tricky because it's used as a utility coin for the exchange as well, but still it showed the peak in the distribution cycle. So it started off end of last year with the preliminary supply, and then there's buying climax. We see all the high volumes coming in, and then it start with these different events. If you know the Wyckoff method, you know what they mean. Like the second test, the upthrust, and then the last point of supply, similar to the other two crypto we just looked at. And then again, it's still within this trading range. And at this point, you see these three green bars, the volume bars over here. It's telling similar story. The volume is getting lower and lower. And we see that the price, it doesn't change much so far this week, as long as it doesn't go past here. So we see, if we expand, like go enlarge this, we see the wick briefly went above the resistance line, the green one. So came back down really quickly. So that's where it, like is the resistance. So it didn't went through. So I'm not expecting any kind of big upward move at the moment, especially if the Wyckoff method stays true. It shouldn't be. It can be like a bull trap. It's like, oh, people would think it went past the resistance line, it must go up. That's probably not the case. So we see this happening. If we go to the daily chart, you see once it's gone through the resistance line, there are quite a bit of selling pressure. You see this red bar gaining volume. That's BNB. And then Ethereum. I need to go a little bit, shrink the price range a little bit so we can see the long-term playground zone. So last time here we can see this very complete Wyckoff distribution pattern, and then in the middle the orange text, the accumulation pattern, where we see these tests, sign of strength, and then the backup, and then later last year or early this year, January this year, we see where the preliminary supply taking place. We see this large volume bar, and then a bunch of larger volume bars push it to the buying climax, and then we've got this automatic response, sign of weakness. You probably have heard too much that I've quoted this term, so I will talk about these terms less next time or in the future videos, since I guess people will already know what they mean. So Ethereum, like I mentioned in video I posted 2 weeks ago, it went past the support line already. So either it has started a new accumulation cycle over here, or it's waiting for a drop after this last point of supply. So here, if we look at, again, I'm trying to find the August 5th. So Ethereum is telling a different story, but the other three that we have seen is pretty much the same. And then when I get to Bitcoin, I'll tell you what I have in mind, because Bitcoin is showing kind of similar story as the other three. So for Ethereum, again, don't be overly excited. We see these red and green candles intertwined. So it may be waiting for a drop, because I don't see a clear trading range being established yet. It may happen, but again, it may not. So we can say there's kind of a flat bottom here. We'll have to wait and see, because here is still kind of like a, let me draw two lines to make it easier. So we've got some lower top and bottom taking place. So it looks like a downward channel to me. It may go up to the red support line somewhere around 2,900, ideally, and then it will come back down probably. So that's my guess, if it has to complete the Wyckoff distribution cycle. If it has started a new cycle, we'll still see some kind of downward movement, as you see here, like some kind of second test or further test. So it probably won't go all the way up in the near term. So keep an eye on this one. And finally on Bitcoin. So again, similar patterns I've explained 2 weeks ago. So let me get to the point where I was keeping at my back pocket. So you see this August 5th again, right? So we have this in XRP, Ripple, Solana, and BNB. Same thing. Very short open and close range, long wick and tail, and a pretty high volume bar compared to the weeks before and after. So the idea I have in mind is probably there's some large players distributing whatever stock they have in hand. That's why there's a high volume, but a pretty marginal price movement, meaning there's a lot of supply. So I am focusing on this one, and that's why I'm a bit conservative about being too bullish. And then if we look at the purple line again, it's got a resistance line or lower tops that we are seeing. So these, in the past 4 weeks, the tops are even lower. So given the volume as well, we're just midweek, so we'll have to wait and see for the last 2-3 remaining trading days for this week and see what happens. So if we just look at Wyckoff distribution cycle, the last point of supply are pretty much set. So if we look at this, we'll see these kind of pattern that's going to happen. Not saying it's going to happen exactly like this. It can be steeper or it can be less violent, I would say. But if I look at the long-term playground zone, there can be a chance that it goes back to somewhere around 34,000, depending on when it comes down. If it lasts till end of next year, it will probably be somewhere around 36,000 if it gradually decline before it goes back up again. So hopefully it's not going to go down to the bottom of the long-term playground zone where it's around 21,000. That's the top 5 crypto I've covered. Let me know what you think. It'll be shorter or more concise in future because I don't need to repeat the terms again. We just look at what happened in the past week if I make this a weekly video. So it will be shorter, and I may be able to cover a couple more coins or assets as well, because in the video 2 weeks ago, I've covered TLT, the long-term government bond. We can take a quick look at what do we have. So it has changed only marginally. It's still within this trading range. It's within the accumulation cycle. We saw a spring and then last point of support. So it's expected that it's going to bounce between the green and the orange line. I would hope to see, if it hits the purple line, it sets a higher low and it goes all the way up with a little bit of backup, and then it will spring all the way. I don't know how far it goes, but in terms of the long-term playground zone I've drawn, the bottom of the zone would be around 107, maybe, depending on when it reached this point. So let's wait and see. It probably won't happen until end of this year or beginning of next year. So maybe people are waiting for FOMC meetings and probably some other news in order to push things or move prices. So let's wait and see. Thanks for joining me. See you next week. Have a good day.